Honestly, please tell me the last time ignoring your problems made them go away because I would love to know. Sadly, you probably can't think of one. It's okay, I can't either, although it'd be great if we could. We aren't the only ones with this problem, though. There are two boys in the book Will Grayson, and coincidentally, they are both named Will Grayson. Because this is mostly a verbal presentation, I will call lowercase Will Grayson Will and uppercase Will Grayson Grayson. A huge theme in this book is that you shouldn't avoid your problems. This ties into the three relationships I'm about to explain. First is Will and Tiny's relationship. Will is a very desiccated character due to his depression, and Tiny is very quixotic, which made Will think that Tiny doesn't have any problem. Once Will went on a tirade yelling at Tiny about his depression, and saying that Tiny would never understand that his depression made it impossible for him to love anybody. This made Tiny feel, pun intended, belittled. This caused Tiny to believe what he was saying. If he keeps saying he's callous, he must mean it. Tiny argued that he did have problems. His mammoth side was always the first thing people saw in him, making him very insecure, and he tried so hard to make people happy and gets nothing in return. This exchange taught lesson A. You're not the only person that has problems. The second relationship is Grayson and Jane. Grayson taught himself that the best way to not get hurt is to inhibit yourself from anything that may cause feelings. In his words, shut up and don't care. So when he started caring about Jane, he immediately began to repress his feelings for her. Because she thought he didn't like her, she got back with her ex, which made Grayson upset and forced him to face the fact that he did have feelings for Jane. This tied into the motif of Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat is essentially a scientific enigma. The most basic way to explain it is that if you put a cat in a box and don't open it, it is both alive and dead until you open it. Kind of like the whole if a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around to hear it deal. This symbolized their romantic feelings. Grayson reasoned that if he didn't act upon his feelings for her, their romantic relationship was both alive and dead. Finally, Jane forced him to accept his feelings by saying, keeping the box closed doesn't keep the universe in the dark, it just keeps you in the dark. The third relationship is the one between Grayson and Tiny. To begin with, Tiny's temerity scared Grayson, as he always taught himself to shut up and not care, and Tiny was the exact opposite of that. Tiny created a character based on Grayson for his play, and while coaching the actor that was playing Grayson, Tiny said, "This character acts like they don't care, a lot, but they do care. They're actually really sensitive." Grayson overheard this and stopped talking to Tiny. While Grayson was hurt by what Tiny said, Tiny was hurt that Grayson wasn't there to support him while he was stressing out over his play. They didn't talk to one another about their feelings, which caused a schism in their friendship. Theme C is that you always need to think about both sides of the story. The thing that jeopardized their relationships all tied together. Will and Tiny stopped talking, Grayson and Tiny stopped talking, and Grayson and Jane acted like they didn't have feelings for one another when they clearly did. Their refusal to acknowledge their feelings only prolongs their problems. The one thing that fixed all of their relationships was communication and acknowledgement. Will realized what he said hurt Tiny, so he went to Tiny's play to show appreciation. Grayson took Jane's advice and talked to Tiny, saying that Tiny is a terrible friend, but so is he, and he's thankful that he has Tiny. Jane and Grayson finally got together, and all of the awkwardness of ignoring their feelings was gone. Had they communicated in the first place, their problems wouldn't have become as big as they were, and the book would have been a lot shorter in all honesty. Reading this book, two other John Green characters came to mind. Lindsay from An Abundance of Catherines and Margot from Paper Towns. Both acted like someone they weren't to be liked. Lindsay completely changed who she was. She abandoned her goth style to become preppy so she could have friends. Margot was the most popular girl in her school, but she was so focused on becoming what other people wanted her to be that she forgot who she actually was. This reminded me of Grayson. He wrote a public letter defending Tiny from homophobia, and because of that, his friends left him. So he made a rule for himself to shut up and not care so that he wouldn't be alone again. There's even a quote in the book that shows how hard he tries to fit in when he says, "I was laughing at the appropriate times and listening at the appropriate times, so I guess that means I'm eating lunch with them." The book relates to a lot of aspects of society today. One example is the GSA Club. It's a gay straight alliance club in the book, just like Spectrum here at Kaufman. Another example is depression. Both of the Will Graysons show signs of depression. A lot of teenagers today struggle with depression too. This book brings awareness to both of those issues. conclusion, the most prevalent theme of this novel is that you shouldn't avoid your problems. You should face them head on because then they won't last as long and it'll be much easier to resolve.